Notes from the Underground famously begins with our man from the Underground saying, "I am a sick man. I am a wicked man." What is his sickness? Wherein does his wickedness lie? We learn a lot about these questions in the first chapter. At first it seems that our man from the Underground's sickness is some sort of liver ailment. He refuses treatment and will not even go to see a doctor about his sickness. He then tells us that he refuses to be treated out of wickedness. He is educated enough not to be superstitious, but he is superstitious, though he still respects medicine. What is going on here? His wickedness, it seems, is related to his unwillingness to see a doctor about his sickness. His wickedness may also lie in the fact that he is superstitious, though he is sufficiently educated not to be. His wickedness, in other words, arises from his rejection of the current standards of respectability. He is wicked by the standards of his day. Precisely what the standard of respectability is becomes clear as we go through the first part of the book. He calls it variously the educated man of the 19th century, or a man touched by the development of European civilization. This standard comes up throughout the first part of the book, and it forms a sort of unhealthy scientific public teaching that our man from the Underground would escape and would diagnose. We will see that this vision of contemporary standards comes in many forms. Our man from the Underground thinks that these forms undermine human happiness and human thriving. He thinks that they misunderstand what a human being is. Yet our man does not seem to thrive, and he does not seem to be happy. Though sick, he does not bow his knee to the authority of medicine. His wickedness lies in his unwillingness to live according to the 19th century standard of decency. So he strangely both accepts those standards and rejects them. He judges himself against those standards, but does not think they are the ultimate standard. Our man from the Underground enjoys being wicked by the standards of his day. If I were a lesser man, I would say that he gets his identity from being wicked. He finds his individuality in departing from the orders of others. He spends his time trying to show others that he ultimately does not need them. Our man from the Underground used to be in the civil service. He says he was a wicked official. Petitioners, it seemed, would come to him and ask for their due. And he made it very difficult for them to get their due. Then they would get upset, and our man from the Underground felt delight when he managed to upset someone. This unfriendliness, he understood fully, was not really a reflection of his character. He was neither a wicked man nor an embittered man. He was simply frightening sparrows in vain and pleasing myself with it, as he writes. He was never able to become wicked. He was not wicked because at every moment he felt swarming inside of him an embarrassment for how he was acting. He writes, quote, "I was conscious every moment of so very many elements in myself most opposite to that. I knew they had been swarming in me all my life, asking to be let out of me, but I would not let them out. I purposely would not let them out." End quote. We are going to repeatedly see our man from the Underground gets his kicks out of showing others that he does not care what they think. It is important for readers to figure out what he thinks of himself and why he thinks that. Was it because he adopted the standard of the 19th century morality? Or was there something within him untouched by either 19th century morality or his hostile rejection of it, something perhaps like a conscience that nagged him from within? This may be a major gap between our man from the Underground and our author, Dostoyevsky. Our man seems to think his wickedness is judged against the standards of his day. But that does not necessarily mean that is Dostoyevsky's position. And in the first paragraphs of the book, this is one of the places where Dostoyevsky points out a deep ambiguity, or maybe divide, between him and his fictional narrator. I'm going to spend much more time discussing Our Man from the Underground's critique of the modern situation, both his description of it and how it undermines human happiness and fulfillment. Our Man from the Underground tells us that, quote, an intelligent man of the 19th century must be and is morally obliged to be primarily a characterless being, a man of character, an active figure, primarily a limited being. What is this characterless being, and why must modern man be one? This constitutes a theme of the rest of Part 1. Let us pick upon what that theme is. I want to start by cataloging Our Man from the Underground's various ways of putting this modern sickness. In Part 2, he says that, quote, to be overly conscious is a sickness, a real, thorough sickness. This thorough consciousness, chiefly and finally, he writes, occurs according to the normal and basic laws of hate and consciousness, and the inertia that follows directly from these laws, and consequently there is not only nothing you can do to change yourself, but there is nothing to do at all. In Part 5, Our Man from the Underground repeats this sentiment, quote, the direct, lawful, immediate fruit of consciousness is inertia, that is, a conscious sitting with folded arms. Let us take preliminary stock in what Our Man from the Underground has said. Consciousness, or heightened consciousness, comes with intelligence and with knowledge of what he calls the laws of nature. Once one realizes that human action is subject to the laws of nature, one loses one's confidence in human distinctiveness, and one becomes disinclined to act. Inertia is the result of a conscious sitting with folded arms. The above-ground world is built on principles of science. These are people who look at the uneducated, narrow, stupid, normal man as one who is filled with prejudice or a desire for revenge or anxiety. The modern people are so beyond these passions, so beyond the bitter clinging to prejudice and the old way. In Part 3, Our Man from the Underground contrasts the normal man with the man of heightened consciousness. The normal man, when he is wronged, wishes to take revenge. In the realm of common sense, this desire for revenge is a reflection of justice. There is a confusion common to normal people, and there is some wisdom in this confusion. Revenge is a sign that one has been wronged, that one has been done an injustice. It is, of course, not right to equate revenge with justice, but it is also not right to deny justice in order to avoid taking revenge. This is the normal man's point of view. In contrast to this, we have the man of heightened consciousness, or as Our Man from the Underground calls him, here, the mouse. This is the man of modern science. The mouse, the wretched mouse, doubts whether there is any justice, and he looks at his own desire for revenge with doubt. He will not act upon it. Slap him in the face, and he will not fight back. Or if he does fight back, it is an embarrassment to him. If his wife cheats on him, it is no matter. He is beyond jealousy, that primitive instinct, that normal reaction so insulting to women, just as he is beyond desiring revenge. This, at least, is how the most sophisticated of those advanced men of the 19th century would act. As a result of their skepticism, they have lost their will. Our Man from the Underground is not a normal man. He is a man of heightened consciousness. However, he continues to feel the spirit of revenge, the thirst for justice, and the doubts and anxieties about justice plague him. He slinks back underground, an offended, beaten down, derided mouse who immerses himself in cold, venomous, everlasting spite. He indulges fantasies of revenge. The poison of unsatisfied desires penetrates inward. Our man from the underground experiences a, quote, strange pleasure, end quote, from feeling normal desires on the backside of the skeptical heightened consciousness. This is what takes him underground. This is what it means to be taken underground, it seems. So here in the first three sections of part one, we have what I am going to call a three-stage account of human experience. First, there is the normal man, who feels normal feelings, who does not doubt his own ability to sense things, who worries about death, who is filled with awe at birth, who may believe in God, and who thinks of himself as a free being. This is the old way, and it seems to have been destroyed by modern science broadly conceived. The second stage is the stage of modern science. This is where human beings come to be aware of the laws of nature that govern human life. Human life can be studied like physical life, or like stones. Human beings follow regular patterns of action, and there is nothing particularly distinctive about human beings. Near the end of part three, our man from the underground refers to, quote, the laws of nature, the conclusions of natural science, mathematics, all of which are based on the idea that there is nothing distinctive about human beings. Among those sciences is that science that man has developed, the man is, quote, descended from an ape, and the science that elevates self-interest so that, quote, your own fat should be dearer to you than 100,000 of your fellow men, end quote. He also mentions the science in which virtues and obligations are nothing but prejudices, and both must be remade on the basis of self-interest. Many human beings delight in pointing out how our actions are dictated by the laws of nature and mathematics. Then there is the third level, one prong of which our man from the underground has taken for himself. This is not a simple and normal life. That life is no longer really possible. It is a way of life that sees through the way of modern science and sees its deficits. If the modern way says X, our man from the underground will say not X. Yet he will feel guilty about what he has done, because he seems to accept the moral horizon created by modern science. He will stick people's face in his rebellion, and then he will slink back underground, recognizing his own wickedness. Our man from the underground at the third level has much contempt for human beings that live at the second level. He has a strange respect for those who live at the first level. They are people with strong nerves. They are bulls, not mice. The normal may be stupid, as our man from the underground says in part 3. But the normal man is very beautiful too, as our man from the underground also says in part 3. We must understand more of what this modern way is and why our man from the underground finds it unfulfilling.